Thanks for joining me again today. I thought we'd do a little bit of a slowed down sun salutation flow. So there will be some times where we're on the palms of the hands. If you have wrist trouble, you can always alternate that by putting your elbows on the floor, being on your forearms. But there is quite a lot of up and down. So anybody with conditions like vertigo or Meniere's, any sort of spatial difficulty, you might want to approach with caution or try another video altogether. So let's start from a nice, easy seated position. All you have to do is just sit comfortably. You don't have to have your feet crossed. Just roll the shoulders up, back, and around to get some synovial fluid distributed through the joints and get the cartilage lubricated. You might get some pops and clicks as connective tissues are rolling back into alignment. That's fine. Let's open up the chest by alternately dipping the shoulders over the opposite knee. So what we're aiming for is a stretch or opening sensation right where your shoulders and your chest meet. And then let's get some movement in the spine. We'll take a seated cat and cow. So you just arch and flex your back going forward and backward, just to the pace and range of motion that suits you. As always, I don't have any background music. YouTube has some complicated copyright rules, so I always invite you to use your own music if you wish. That way, you'll always have something that you like. If you want, you can add to this a Sufi grind. It just gets a little deeper into the hips. Again, anybody with any spatial issue like vertigo or Meniere's might like to stick with the seated cat and cow. And let's bring this back to center. Let's take a side stretch. It doesn't matter which side you want to stretch first, just find some space between the ribs. And to the other side. And back up to center. Let's get the ankles warmed up. Let's stick out your feet. Point and flex as best you can. And there's no music to cover up all my ankle popping, so if you have your volume all the way up and you're hearing your house crumbling, it's not, it's just my ankles popping. Sorry. All right, let's pull the toes all the way back toward the face, kick out with your heels. Reach forward for your toes if you can. If your toes are not available to you, just reach as far as you can. Remember, most of the stretch comes from flexing your foot, so that's where you get the main part of the stretch. If you want a little bit extra, you can open up some myofascial bands by tucking your chin to your chest. Good, let's take the feet out wide, at least wider than they are now. So we're going to stretch out through the QLs. Just drop your forehead in the general direction of one of your knees. You should feel a stretch on the opposite side of your lower back, somewhere between the bottom of your rib and the top of your hip. And to the other side. And back up to center. We're going to do one more hip opener and then we'll get into the flow. So you're going to tuck one foot in, it doesn't matter which, and that same hand will go behind you. You'll keep the other leg extended and that corresponding arm will be extended as well. You'll press up and forward with your back hip coming onto your shin and your sole and then swinging it back down for stargazer. So we're just wanting to feel that nice big stretch across the hip. And it doesn't matter what you do with your arm, it's just there. If you want that stretch down the side body, you don't technically have to use it, especially if you have any shoulder sensitivity. Let's swap sides. Just about 3 to 5 usually does the job. All right, so let's come into all fours on hands and knees. So as always, if being on the palms of the hands is not for you today, you can be on the flat part of your knuckles in gorilla fist so that your wrist stays straight and not bent. If you can be on the palm of your hand, that's fine. You could also be on the forearm. As much as possible, we want the wrist, fist, or elbow right under the shoulder. What tends to happen as we start to move is the wrist goes out ahead of the shoulder. That puts a lot of strain on the elbow. So just check in with yourself periodically that you have your shoulders right over the top. Let's first step your right toes back for a calf stretch. Some people like to bounce into a stretch. You're welcome to do that. I just don't care for it myself, so I don't demonstrate it. Change sides. So we're going to open up the calf and Achilles a little bit because we're headed into downward dog next. So let's curl the toes under, straighten the knees, suck your belly in, and pull your hips up and back. That'll bring you into an upside down V shape. And just sort of let your heart melt towards the floor like there's a magnet pulling you down. Let's kick up your right leg as high as it wants to go. Just nice stretch through the inner thighs. Let's swing this forward and drop down into lizard. So your right foot is flat to the floor. If you are back here, you might need to swing out and around or just sort of coax your foot forward. But we want to make sure that your knee is about over the ankle for the same reason as we like to have the shoulders over the wrists. Let's curl the toes under again, and we're headed back to downward facing dog. So suck your belly in and up, and that'll pull you backwards. Let's take the left leg up and swing it through. So I like to have my hands on the inside of the arch of my foot. Some people like to have their foot between their hands. 6 of one, half dozen of the other. If it feels good to you, it feels stable to you, that's where you should be. So you don't have to do exactly what you're seeing. Just go in the direction that feels good to go for you. Again, we're looking for the stretch in the front of the hip. Nice hip flexor stretch, although if you're very tight in your hamstrings, you might be feeling it on the inside or underside of the left thigh. That's just fine. And let's curl the right toes under and pull yourself back up to downward facing dog. And let's drop the knees, uncurl the toes, push hips back to heels for child's pose. And back up to all fours. So for your baby bear choice, you can cat and cow. This is a really good option for anybody who has lower back sensitivity or problems with the wrists or shoulders. If mama bear is something you'd like to explore, you're going from downward facing dog to all fours, and you're pulling your belly button up and back like a lawnmower starter, and that gets you where you want to go. Papa bear, you're going from downward facing dog to upward facing dog. And we're still using the belly to pull up and back, but we want to be careful that you're not locking out your elbows. You have nice soft elbows. So you're just letting your core shift your body weight forward and down and up and back. Let's all meet in downward facing dog and walk the hands and the feet together so that you're in a standing forward fold. We want the weight to be in the ball of your foot. You should be able to pick up your heels. A lot of times people will lock out their knees, hyperextend the knees. We'd rather them be slightly bent and your weight pulled forward. The tips of your sitting bones should point at the ceiling, the crown of the head should point at the floor. A lot of people will look up and forward, and that just puts quite a bit of pressure on the neck, so no creases at the back of the neck, just let your head hang heavy. Then we'll bend the knees, tuck the tailbone, roll the spine to standing one by one. The head is the last thing to stack back on top. So we are going to take the sun salutations now, and I'm going to tie my hair back. Feel free to grab some water before you dive in. We'll go slow, so we'll take several breaths in each part of the movement, which will give you a chance to really align yourself and check your form. So let's start in chair pose. So at the top of your mat, you're going to sit your hips down and back and your arms up overhead. If you want to challenge yourself, you can come onto the balls of your feet. And then exhale, fold forward. We're going to inhale and make a tabletop with your spine. So you're pulling in opposite directions with the crown of the head and the sitting bones. And again, making sure that you're not resting your weight in your heels. You're pulling up with your belly button. And this is what is activating your core so that you're ready when we get down into plank next. So you bend the knees as much as you need to get your hands on the floor. You can just step back, or you can hop back, plank, or modified plank. So with the wrists right under the shoulders, fists or elbows. If you need to, you can drop your knees for support. We'd rather you drop your knees always than drop your belly. Chaturanga, you take your elbows straight back and squeeze in. You're hovering here. And then inhale, sweep the heart forward for upward facing dog. So you don't want to drop your belly and sink into your shoulders. You're sort of imagining that there's a string at the center of the small of your back and the center of your chest that are lifting you up toward the ceiling, and your belly is pulling up. And then you're going to pull back with your belly, and that'll bring you into downward facing dog. Remember to squeeze in with your elbows. Try to pull the tips of your shoulder blades as close to the tops of your hips as you can. And let's walk this forward. So again, just let your head hang heavy, no locked knees. And we're going to inhale up into your chair pose. Right back down, forward fold. Let's take that tabletop spine. Again, remember this is your core activation, so we never want to miss that opportunity. Then we're coming down into your plank or your modified plank. So, as always, you could step or hop. If you're going to put your knees on the floor, kids, make sure your hips are in line with the rest of your spine. I see a lot of people that their body makes sort of the shape of a Z, and that's not doing anything for your core. It is protecting your back, but we'd like to protect your back and work your core. Time for your chaturanga. Pull the elbows back and squeeze inwards. You don't have to come all the way down. Some people are just shaped in such a way that this is as far as they can go without letting their elbows go out. That's really fine. It's more about the proportions of your body than strength or flexibility. Then we're coming into upward facing dog. So again, we're pulling our weight up out of the floor. Unless for your low back or your wrists, it would be a better choice to come into space. You could put your belly on the floor and your forearms on the floor as well, if that were a better choice for your lower back. Again, you can come straight back to downward facing dog, or if it suits you better, you could stop on all fours along the way. Let's again kick up the right leg as high as it wants to go. And now let's swing it through. Plant it firmly. Set your left heel down so your left arch is on the floor. Your right toes point forward, your left toes point to the left. And we'll take the arms up overhead for warrior one. So the shoulders point forward, your hips are sort of on a left diagonal. Your knee should be over the ankle and pointed over the pinky toe. So when you look down, you should only be able to see your left big toe. If you want to challenge yourself, move your back foot further and bring your thigh parallel to the floor. If you don't want it, you don't have to. From here, let's come back to our plank or modified plank. Let's take our chaturanga. Our upward facing dog, watch that you're not locking out your elbows. They can be straight, just not hyperextended. And downward facing dog. Let's kick the left leg up. And swing it through. Coming up for your warrior one. So coming up into warrior one should be an inhale. You're going to pull your belly in towards your backbone, and that's what's going to pull your shoulders back over your hips. If you try to lift up into warrior one and you're holding your breath or you're inhaling, you are ripe for a back injury. So make sure you are using your belly and inhaling up. Again, when you look down, you should only be able to see your big toe. Let's head back to plank. And again, modified plank is always available. A little mini tricep push-up. If you're getting tired, that's fine. Sweep the heart forward in some kind of way. Up dog, cobra, sphinx, and downward facing dog. Remember to, again, pretend like there's magnets on the insides of your elbows. Really squeeze them together. That will help your triceps pull some of the weight sensation out of your hands and wrists. And let's walk this in. Again, nice standing forward fold. So tips of the sitting bones, the ischial tuberosities should be pointing up at the ceiling. The crown of the head should be pointed at the floor. If you like, you can grab opposite elbows. You could even swing from side to side like an elephant's trunk. And let's come back up into our chair pose. Sorry, I have to mess with my shirt a lot, which is why I don't like filming flow videos. But better I play with my shirt than you see anything you don't really want to see. From here, let's head back to our standing forward fold. Your tabletop spine, make sure nice soft knees are in place. Once you're sure you have your core activated, again, you can step or hop out into the plank of your choosing. And again, you can be on your elbows, you could be on your knees. Chaturanga Dandasana, four-pointed stick. Upward facing dog. I've noticed since yoga has gotten more popular, no one says, "What's up, dog?" anymore, because we're always in up dog, I guess. There's probably no relationship, but that's where my mind went. Downward facing dog. Let's kick up the right leg. Swing it through again. We're coming back to this warrior one. So again, check to make sure your back arch is on the floor. The leading knee is over the ankle. The shoulders point forward. Because we're starting on the right and I don't have a multi-camera set up, I'm gonna have to turn my back to you briefly. It's not a pretty view, but I'm more concerned with whether or not you can hear me. So we'll all do the best we can. From here, we're gonna come out into warrior two. So we just shifted the torso. So what happens a lot when you do that is your knee wants to fall over your big toe. We don't want that. Imagine there's a string at the outside of your knee that's pulling your knee over the pinky toe, and you're actually pulling your feet in towards one another like scissors. So you should really feel your inner thighs very engaged here. From warrior two, we come into side angle pose. Your right elbow to your right knee and your left arm up overhead. So it's really important that you're pushing your body weight, some of it, into your back foot so that your leading knee isn't having to take everything. There should be even weight distribution in both feet. From here, we're going to take the left hand to the back of the left knee, the right arm up overhead. So a lot of times when people do that, the knee will straighten. We don't want that. Keep it nice and bent. And again, let's cartwheel the hands down and step back. Plank or modified plank. The chaturanga of your choosing, which might mean you skip the damn thing and either stay in plank or go from plank to upward facing dog. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do, and certainly not if it is causing problems. The idea is to feel better once we've completed this. Let's take down dog. And let's kick up the left leg. Swing that through. Again, the arch of your opposite foot should be on the floor, so left toes point forward, right toes point to the right, arms up overhead. The shoulders point forward, the hips are sort of out on the diagonal. And again, only your left big toe should be visible. Then just turning the torso out to the long side of the mat for warrior two. And you've got that pull going with the feet. So it's not something that you can really easily demonstrate visually. You'll just know if you're doing it properly because you'll feel it in the adductors. Then we're gonna reach forward into side angle pose. Nice diagonal line going all down the right side of your body, making sure that you're pushing into your back foot as well as your front foot. And now we're gonna stretch the other side of the ribs with reverse warrior. So we don't want the knee to come with you. Leave it right where it is. And again, cartwheel the hands down. Your plank or your modified plank. If you're doing it, your chaturanga, even if it's just a little one, you can feel your triceps on the back part of your arm fire. Inhale for your upward facing dog. Exhale for your downward facing dog. And let's walk this in to another standing forward fold. Nice soft knees. And inhale up into that chair pose. The balls of the feet is an option. You can keep the heels down if you prefer. And let's forward fold again. And let's step back to downward facing dog. So pretty significant step backwards. Pull the belly button up and back. We're going to kick up your right leg and swing it through behind your wrists for pigeon. So remember, with pigeon, we want the low back to be level. We never want you to roll all the way onto the outside of that right hip, thigh, or buttock, because that's going to pull on your ACL. If it doesn't bother you today, it's going to bother you sometime, and you'll notice it when it's too late. So make sure you're nice and level. If pigeon is not for you today, remember there's always the option to get the same benefit, same stretch, all of that from taking threaded needles. You'll just flip over onto your back, cross the right ankle over the left knee. There's like a figure 4 or triangle shape between the thighs, and you pull the left knee into the chest. The more the left knee is pulled into the chest, the more you'll feel it on the outside of the hip, thigh, or buttock. So there's no difference in the intensity or the quality or the benefit. Pigeon and threaded needles are the same thing, just facing a different direction. So if that's a better choice for you, you're not missing out on anything, or you're not doing something lesser, you're just facing a different direction. I get asked a lot about the position of the shin. If you can bring your shin parallel to the top of your mat and your leg is more than a 90-degree angle, goody for you. But most people's bodies aren't shaped that way. If it doesn't feel good, then something's wrong. If it's comfortable, it's correct. And it's okay to feel like there's an intensity of stretch. It's not okay to feel like there's pain or pulling. So you know where that is. You can experiment with trying to get your shin more to a 90-degree angle or more parallel to the top of your mat, but let your knee decide on the front, that's your ACL ligament, let it decide how far you're gonna go. So back to the palms of the hands or the forearms. We're gonna curl the left toes under, pick the left knee up. You're gonna pull your belly up and back. That brings you back to downward facing dog. On the left, kick it up. Swing it through. If you can, try to get your shin more or less behind your wrists, but what works on one side might not work on the other side. It might be a better choice to take threaded needles on this side, even if you did pigeon on the previous side. If it works for you, then it works. If it doesn't work for you, skip it. Or find something different. Back to the palms, and again back to downward facing dog. Let's again walk it into your standing forward fold. So the feet should be right under the hips, about hip width apart. And again, inhale up into that chair pose. You can have the heels up or the heels down. Back into your forward fold. Step back to downward facing dog. We'll drop the knees, uncurl the toes, and push the hips back to the heels to the extent that it feels okay. If child's pose is not an option for your knees, a variation would be extended puppy. You push your palms away and drop the chest and chin on the floor, and you're pulling in opposite directions with your fingertips and sitting bones and getting some length in the spine. It's a lot less pressure. So go where it feels good to go. We're going to come back up to all fours and drop back down into Sphinx. Because we're cooling down, you can do up dog if you like, but your wrists are probably ready for a break. Good, we're going to flip over onto the back. It doesn't matter which way your head or your feet face. From here, you're just going to pull the knees into the chest, thighs to belly for Upasana. If you like, you can also take Happy Baby, if that's your preference, but we're just trying to get some length in the lower back and let the muscles around the sacrum open back up. And I don't ordinarily do Shavasanas in videos because they don't have music and it doesn't have a lot of visual interest, but we'll just do a quick Shavasana today. So just splat yourself out on the floor, or if you're near a wall, you can do legs up the wall. If you like, you can have your feet flat to the floor, knees pointed at the ceiling, or be on your belly or your side in the fetal position. It's just up to you. Let's just close your eyes. Swallow and relax your jaw, separate your teeth. Pull the tongue away from the roof of the mouth and just let it float lightly at the back of the throat. We'll breathe in and out a little more deeply than normal, enough so that you can feel the belly and the chest rise and fall. And just notice how your clothes are shifting against your skin as you're doing so. The breath can be in and out through the nose, in through the nose, out through the mouth, whatever works for you. Begin to inhale awareness back into your body. You can wiggle your fingers and your toes. You can roll your head from side to side. You can take your arms up overhead and stretch, or again, pull the knees into the chest and stretch, or both. You can even drop your knees from side to side like windshield wipers. And then just when you're ready, you can come onto your side in the fetal position. You can use your top hand to press yourself up, back to seated. I don't usually Namaskar out in my videos either, in case people want to watch them back to back, but again, we'll just throw it in if you want it today. We'll inhale the arms up overhead from the sides, lifting the ribs away from the hips and gathering all that you seek. And exhaling, calling it into heart center and channeling your energy there. Just taking a moment of gratitude that you were able to bring yourself to your yoga mat today. That your body is healthy enough to move into and out of the yoga postures. And I thank all of you for coming to play yoga with me today. The light within me honors the light within you. Namaste. And to all my regular students that I can't see during the quarantine, I love you, I miss you, and I'll see you soon. Bye.